Revealed, the incredible journey of my hidden potential, how I transformed in 30 days. Jake stood at the grease-stained counter of his father's auto repair shop, sweat dripping from his brow. The bright overhead lights flickered like the hope he once had, a vibrant thing now dimmed by the weight of expectations and disappointment. At 32, the town of Oak Ridge seemed to be squeezing him dry, just like the engines he worked on day in and day out. His father's harsh gaze felt like a storm cloud hovering above him. "You're just a mechanic," the tone echoed in Jake's mind, a relentless reminder of the family legacy he felt chained to. What was left for him? The dreams he held flickered weakly against the dull reality around him. In midst of chaos, his mother's soft voice crept in. "Don't lose sight of your dreams, Jake. You can bring change." But the townsfolk shook their heads, dismissing his longings, reinforcing that hope felt as fragile as summer fireflies, glowing but never lasting. That afternoon, consumed by self-doubt, Jake ventured out to clear his mind. That's when he met Sam, a local veteran, who wore the scars of his past like badges of honor but remained a shining beacon in the community. "Join me," he said, his steady gaze unwavering. "There's a mentorship program that could help unlock your potential." Jake hesitated, but curiosity tugged at him like a child tugging at a parent's sleeve. What could he lose? Reluctantly, he signed up. Yet, as he dove in, the change he embraced left a rift in his home. Melanie, his younger sister, once his biggest supporter, now looked at him like he was a stranger. "You're leaving me behind, Jake," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. The weight of his ambition felt heavy against the backdrop of their shared dreams and memories, and he felt torn. Days turned into weeks as he worked hard to transform not just himself but Oak Ridge. He faced sneers and scoffs from wealthier townsfolk who saw him as just a mechanic. But with each degrading comment, a fire ignited within him, propelling him to prove them wrong. This was more than a personal journey, it was about community spirit and shared hope. But just as he began to feel progress, disaster struck. The town's hospital was on the verge of closure. An air of despair hung thick, like a heavy fog. The hospital wasn't just a building. It was a lifeline for every family in Oak Ridge. Jake felt the urgency pulse through him. This wasn't about individual ambitions anymore. Rallying together could reshape the very identity of the community. He recalled wisdom from Sam's program and formed a plan, but the tension with Melanie gnawed at him. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. With a deep breath, Jake stood at the center of town, facing the gathered crowd of familiar faces. "We can't let fear define us," he shouted, heart racing. "We're stronger together." Yet, as he spoke, he felt the chasm grow deeper between him and Melanie. Would his call for unity draw them closer or push them further apart? The stakes were higher than ever, leaving Jake with a heart full of hope and questions. One last flickering thought hung in the air. Could a shared crisis be the very thing to mend his family and lift Oak Ridge from the shadows? Jake's voice echoed through the crisp afternoon air, filling the square with a sense of urgency. Faces he recognized, neighbors he had grown up with, stared back at him. He saw flickers of doubt and glimmers of cautious hope. Each moment felt like a heartbeat, pulsing with the possibility of change. "Together, we can save the hospital," he urged, adrenaline flowing through his veins. The crowd shifted, murmurs rippling through them like a stone dropped in a pond. The weight of his words settled heavily on his shoulders. He didn't just want their support, he needed it. Among the crowd, Melanie stood frozen, her expression a mix of pride and pain. Jake's heart twisted. Their bond had been a golden thread in the fabric of his life, but now it felt strained, frayed. "I'm not leaving you behind," he wanted to shout. Instead, he locked eyes with her for a fleeting second, searching for understanding. "Every donation counts," he continued. "Let's host a fundraiser. We can bring our families, our friends. We can show everyone that Oak Ridge is strong. We can unite. A surge of energy poured from him, and people began to nod, some murmuring their agreement. Just then, an older woman, Mrs. Thompson, stepped forward. Her voice trembled, yet it held a certain fire. "What do we have left to lose, Jake?" Her eyes shone with a fierce determination. "I've lived here all my life. I remember when this town had hope. We can't let it slip away." The crowd erupted into applause. Jake's heart soared. Energy sparked around him like electricity, but he could still feel the distance between him and Melanie. She was clapping, too, but her smile was strained. In that moment, he wished he could bridge that gap with words, to explain that he wasn't just doing this for himself but for her, for everyone in Oak Ridge. A plan began forming in Jake's mind. They could organize not just a fundraiser but a community festival, a celebration with music, food, and stories. The whole town could come together, share laughter, and show their love for their hospital, for each other. It could rekindle not only the spirit of Oak Ridge but also heal the rift that had grown in his family. But deep down, doubt lingered. Could he really pull this off? Could the vision he had help heal the town and redeem his fractured relationship with Melanie? What if it doesn't work? A voice inside whispered, but he silenced it. Fear won't win. Let us meet tomorrow. He called out, excitement bubbling within him. Everyone gather at the community center. I'll outline the plan, and we'll brainstorm together. The crowd dispersed, energy hanging like sweet anticipation in the air, and yet, Jake found himself lingering, waiting for Melanie to approach. She stepped forward hesitantly, apprehension etched across her face. "I need you in this, Jake," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm scared." With her fragile words, he felt the walls around his heart crack. "We're in this together," he assured her. "Whatever happens, we're family." But as they stood there, the shadows of uncertainty loomed. Would this journey truly pull them closer or drive an even deeper wedge? Could he mend both the hospital and his relationship with Melanie, or would he fail on both fronts? As night fell, Jake glanced back at the flickering lights of the square, knowing the dawn would bring challenges they had yet to face. The real struggle had just begun. What twists awaited them as they ventured into this uncharted territory? The following day dawned with a crispness that felt charged with possibility. Jake woke early, the anticipation in his chest mixing uneasily with his lingering doubts. He could almost hear the echoes of his speech still hanging in the air, the applause of the crowd ringing in his ears, urging him forward. Today was the day they would begin turning words into something tangible. As he prepared for the meeting at the community center, he couldn't shake the worry swirling in his mind. What if no one showed up? What if they didn't see the vision he saw? He inhaled deeply, focusing on the familiar sounds of Oak Ridge, waking up the chirping of birds, the rustling leaves, the distant laughter that filled the air like a reassuring blanket. Arriving at the center, Jake noticed a few early birds waiting outside. Mrs. Thompson was there, her determination infectious as she straightened up the chairs and hung up colorful banners. "Good morning, Jake," she greeted warmly. "Are you ready to breathe life back into this town?" "I hope so," he replied, managing a smile despite the racing thoughts in his head. As more townsfolk began to trickle in, he felt a surge of warmth. Each face he recognized, from the old-timers to the kids he had grown up with, seemed full of curiosity and cautious optimism. Jake reminded himself that this was not just about him, they all carried a piece of hope within them. The meeting started with Jake standing in front of the crowd, his heart pounding like a drum. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. "We all know our hospital is in danger. But today, I want to talk about bringing our community together because that's what will save us." He presented his idea for the festival, narrating his vision of lively music, vibrant booths filled with homemade goods, and local bands playing tunes that spoke of home. "We'll showcase our strengths. Families can come together. We'll share our stories. This is about more than just fundraising, it's about building bonds that have faded." Midway through his explanation, Melanie slipped in, her entrance drawing his gaze. She looked nervous yet determined. Their eyes locked, and time seemed to freeze for a beat. He felt a surge of comfort, the memory of their shared dreams igniting something within him. As he spoke, he noticed Melanie whispering to a few friends. Inspiration sparked in her eyes, slowly morphing her apprehension into something resembling hope. "What do we think?" Jake asked the crowd. "Can we pull this off?" A mix of cheers and nods filled the room, with voices chiming in, ideas poured out like a waterfall. They talked about themes, activities, and who would handle what. Each contribution built the foundation of something bigger than himself. Jake, overwhelmed by joy and relief, smiled for the first time all morning, yet as the buzz of planning continued, Jake sensed a flicker of hesitation from Melanie. After the meeting wrapped up, he felt a magnetic pull to her side. "What did you think?" he asked, heart racing. "I love it," she said, her smile lighting up her face. "But what if it's not enough? What if the town doesn't show up for each other like we hope?" He could see the worry etched on her features. "We won't know unless we try," he replied, hoping to mirror her newfound spark. "But I need you with me. You're a crucial part of this." Melanie took a breath, glancing over the crowd filling the room with excitement. "Okay, but I can't do this alone. We need each other more than ever." "A team," he affirmed, feeling the weight of her words resonate deeply. Just as they shared a moment of unspoken understanding, their reverie was shattered by a sudden commotion outside. A sheriff's car pulled up, lights flashing, and the chatter of the crowd hushed to a concerned whisper. "What's happening?" Jake asked, his heart sinking. As the officer stepped out, Jake felt apprehension claw at him. Was there trouble brewing now, just as they tried to spark hope? What unforeseen challenges would they face? The sheriff approached the building and raised his hand to quiet the growing hum of anxiety among the townsfolk. Something felt very wrong. What news awaited them that could upend their plans? The sheriff cleared his throat, his expression a mix of seriousness and urgency that sent shivers down Jake's spine. The crowd fell silent, tension hanging thick in the air. "Thank you for gathering here today," the sheriff began, his voice steady but firm. "I wish I had come with better news, but we have to address some concerns. Early this morning, we found some strange activity near the abandoned factory. There were reports of vandalism and suspicious gatherings. I need everyone to be aware that there could be trouble ahead." A murmur rippled through the crowd, fear mingling with confusion and disbelief. Jake's heartbeat quickened. This wasn't how today was supposed to go. They were on the cusp of something exciting, not faced with the shadows of old fears. "What do you propose we do?" Mrs. Thompson asked, her voice rising slightly above the whispers, challenging the unease that settled in the room. "We need to keep our community safe. I advise you all to be cautious and avoid any areas that seem unsafe," the sheriff replied, his eyes scanning the crowd as if gauging their reactions. "We're increasing patrols and will be monitoring the situation closely." Jake could feel Melanie's hand brush against his. It was a comforting reminder that they were in this together. Yet he couldn't shake the dread that crept into his thoughts. What if their plans fell apart now, crushed by something they couldn't control? "We can't let fear stop us," Jake said, his voice rising with determination. "We need to be a united front. Let's show that fear doesn't rule us. We're going to make this festival happen." A few heads nodded, and he saw Mrs. Thompson lean forward, her resolve igniting a flicker of hope in his heart. "Yes. We will not back down," she shouted, and her words rippled through the crowd, stirring a new energy. As discussions reignited around festival ideas, the sheriff stepped back, observing the crowd. Jake felt a swell of pride. They were rallying together despite the uncertainty looming over them. "Let us meet again tomorrow to finalize the plans. We have to support each other, now more than ever," Melanie suggested, her voice strengthening with every word. People were nodding, voices chiming in with agreement. There was strength in numbers, in unity, and Jake felt their collective spirit rising like the morning sun, a beacon against the darkness trying to creep in. But as everyone began to disperse, the sheriff stayed back, approaching Jake and Melanie with a look of concern painted across his face. Just stay vigilant, he said quietly, his voice low. These people could be a threat, not only to the factory but to your festival. Jake held the sheriff's gaze, a mixture of defiance and resolve washing over him. Then we'll make sure our festival is a success. We cannot let fear dictate what we do. As the sheriff nodded, Jake felt a deeper weight. The stakes were higher now than ever before. He would have to gather all the strength he possessed to protect this dream. The fear of uncertainty settled in his gut, but a defiance sparked within him. They needed to confront the shadows that threatened their hopeful plans head-on. Jake turned to Melanie, their eyes locking again, as hope and concern flashed between them. Are we ready for this? She whispered, a tremor of doubt creeping into her voice, mirroring the uncertainty that filled him as well. We have to be, Jake replied, determination threading through his words. Little did they know, the unfolding challenges would require more than courage, it would require every ounce of their unity and heart. As they walked away, the community center's doors swinging shut behind them, the dark clouds overhead churned ominously, warning them that the battle for Oak Ridge's future had only just begun. What threats lay beyond the horizon, waiting to disrupt their plans before they could even take flight? The next day dawned, a veil of gray lingering in the sky, the air thick with unease. Jake could barely concentrate on breakfast, the anxious energy swirling in his mind like a tempest. He glanced at Melanie, who was flipping through her notepad, writing down festival ideas, but the worry etched on her face mirrored his own. As they arrived at the community center, Jake could feel the breath of anticipation and anxiety gripping the room. Familiar faces shuffled in, each one wearing expressions that danced somewhere between determination and dread. They were all feeling the weight of the sheriff's warning, the specter of danger looming larger with every passing moment. Okay, everyone, Jake began, standing at the front of the room, pushing back his own nerves. We're here to finalize our plans for the festival. Let us get to the heart of it. The group nodded, some with hesitant smiles, others still caught in the undertow of worry. As discussions kicked off, Jake tried to focus on the flow of ideas, but every so often, his eyes would flick to the windows, half expecting to see shadows lurking just beyond the glass, a trick of the light that pulled him into a tangle of anxiety. Melanie stood beside him, her presence anchoring him, grounding the storm building inside. What if we steer clear of the factory area? She proposed, her voice steady despite the pall that hung over them. We can hold the festival at the park instead. True, Mrs. Thompson agreed, glancing at the others. The park has always brought us together, it could be a safe haven. Right. That's the spirit, Jake chimed in, grateful for their quick alliance. A wave of relief washed over him. Just then, the door creaked open, and the sheriff stepped in, his presence commanding silence instantly. Everyone, I've just received some interesting information, he said, folding his arms as the crowd focused on him. The sheriff glanced at Jake, then cleared his throat. There have been reports of gatherings near the factory, but we believe there's more to it. I need your cooperation. Keep your eyes open for anything suspicious, and let us know immediately. Jake's stomach dropped. He could feel the air shift, the group's energy changing. What do you mean by more? He asked, fear threading through his voice. The possibility of a larger group, one that may be intent on causing trouble, the sheriff replied, his tone serious. Stay alert, we may need your assistance at the festival for safety precautions. Nods rippled through the room, but tension snaked its way into the conversation. Jake felt the heaviness settle again, suffocating the excitement they had attempted to build. Okay, let us not let this unsettle us. Jake urged, doing his best to rally the troops. We came together for a reason, and this festival is going to show everyone what Oak Ridge stands for, no matter what threats or fears are out there. But in the back of his mind, a creeping doubt took root. How could they hold a festival while a storm brewed just beyond their lives? As plans began to thin, one thing loomed persistently: strong resolve was essential, yet so too was caution. Walking home, Jake felt a chill run down his spine, the whispers of haunting possibilities swirling around him again. He glanced at Melanie, who seemed lost in thought, her hand absently brushing the paper in her lap. What if this festival is more than just a celebration? She finally whispered, breaking the silence. What if it's a fight for our community? In that moment, Jake realized she was right. It wasn't just about showcasing their culture and bonds, it was about standing firm against whatever darkness might want to fracture their unity. Now it would take everything they had not just to keep the festival alive, but to protect their home. As they neared his house, Jake noticed a figure standing near the old factory, shrouded in shadow. His heart raced. Is that? Before he could finish his thought, the figure turned and met his gaze. Something inside him felt both electrified and terrified as he recognized the unmistakable form. Who are you? Jake breathed, his voice low but loaded with a blend of urgency and fear. As he drew closer, the figure stepped into view, a dark grin stretching across their face. Something told him that this was the beginning of their real fight. The figure stepped into the dim light, and Jake's heart sank. It was Kyle, an old friend whose eyes now held a flicker of something unsettling. Jake, he said, his voice smooth, almost haunting. I didn't think I'd see you again. Where have you been? Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Memories of laughter and shared secrets flooded back, but they felt like ghosts in the shadow of this new encounter. Kyle took a step closer, the grin on his face deepening. Looking for answers, just like everyone else in this town. You know what's really going on, don't you? Jake's mind raced. What do you mean? What answers? Oh, come on. The sheriff's warnings. The electricity in the air. You felt it too, Kyle said, his excitement tinged with a hint of something darker. There's more happening than you've been led to believe. The festival, it's not just a celebration. It's an invitation. An invitation to what? Jake's instincts flared, urging him to take a step back, but the pull of curiosity kept him rooted to the spot. To the truth. The kind of truth the town's been ignoring. Kyle leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. People gathering. Secrets lurking in the shadows. You want to protect your home, right? Then you need to know what you're up against. Jake felt a lump rise in his throat. He wanted to stand his ground, to insist that his community was strong enough to fend off whatever shadows threatened them. But a part of him, a small part that had been buried beneath layers of doubt, was intrigued. What do you know? He finally asked, his heartbeat drumming in his ears. Kyle straightened, looking freshly invigorated, as if he had just found the last piece of a puzzle. Meet me tonight at the old oak tree by the factory. I'll show you. But you have to be ready for the truth, it might change everything. Before Jake could respond, Kyle turned, disappearing into the dim evening as if he melted into the fabric of the night. A chill swept through Jake, and he glanced back towards Melanie's house, her silhouette illuminated softly in the glow of the porch light. He needed to tell her, to share this new thread tangled in their already chaotic lives, but could he? What if it darkened their hopes, instead of illuminating the way forward? Driven by a confusing blend of dread and curiosity, Jake's mind spun with all the possibilities. He stepped onto his porch, the wooden boards creaking underfoot like the echoes of his uncertainty. At that moment, Melanie joined him, her brow furrowed with concern. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. It's Kyle, Jake confessed, hesitant to share the weight of the conversation. He wants to meet tonight. About what? She asked, her voice a blend of intrigue and warning. Jake took a deep breath, the air thick with unspoken fears. I don't know yet. But I think it's time we find out. Together. Melanie's eyes widened. What if it's dangerous? That's what we're here for, right? To keep the community safe? He said, trying to steady his racing heart. He hated how easily those words slipped from his tongue as a half-hearted reassurance. The night felt heavier, shadows shifting in the corners of his vision. What if this was the key to understanding the brewing storm? Or what if it led them into a deeper darkness? We'll stick together, Jake said, his voice resolving into determination. No matter what. But as they turned to leave for the meeting, a thrill of foreboding clutched at him, planting seeds of fear and excitement all at once. With every step toward the old oak tree, he realized they were not just walking into the night, they were stepping into the unknown, where answers mingled with danger. What truths awaited them in the darkness? The moon hung high, casting a ghostly light over the empty streets as Jake and Melanie made their way to the old oak tree by the factory. Each step felt heavier than the last, the weight of anticipation mixing with an undercurrent of anxiety. The chilly night air wrapped around them like a shroud, amplifying the tension rising between them. "Do you really trust Kyle?" Melanie asked, her voice a whisper. "He just vanished without a word for ages. I don't know," Jake admitted. "But something changed in him. I can feel it." They reached the factory, a looming structure that had stood for decades, its windows dark like hollow eyes. The old oak tree, a sentinel in the night, stood tall nearby, branches stretching wide as if trying to embrace the mysteries of the night. "He said he has answers," Jake continued, fighting the doubt creeping into his mind. "We can't ignore this. Not with everything happening in town." Melanie nodded, albeit hesitantly. "I just hope he's not bringing more trouble with him." As they approached the tree, Jake felt a sudden rush of air, sending a chill down his spine. It was as if the night itself was taunting them, breathing doubts into his thoughts. What if Kyle was part of whatever darkness was descending on their town? In that moment, they heard footsteps crunching on the gravel. Jake turned, his stomach knotting with every passing second. Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Kyle, looking even more intense under the moonlight. His eyes seemed to dance with a feverish light, and for a moment, Jake felt an overwhelming sense of foreboding wash over him. "Thanks for coming," Kyle breathed, his voice urgent yet calm. "This is bigger than I thought. I need your help." "What do you mean?" Jake asked, feeling a surge of uncertainty churn within him. "There's a group out there doing things no one should mess with," Kyle started, glancing around paranoid, as if worried the very trees had ears. "It's not just the festival. They're gathering power. They believe they can control something ancient." "Control what?" Melanie interjected, stepping forward. "What's at stake?" Kyle seemed to weigh his words carefully. "I can't explain everything right now. But if we don't figure this out and act soon, the consequences could be catastrophic. This town, our homes, they could be lost forever." Jake exchanged a glance with Melanie, seeking whatever reassurance he could. "What do we do?" "There's a ritual at the festival tonight. That's where they gather," Kyle replied, urgency coating his words like tar. "We need to expose them. We can't let this happen suddenly." A low rumble echoed in the distance, and the ground beneath them seemed to vibrate. The light from the moon flickered, and for a brief moment, Jake felt as if he stood on the brink of something vast and perilous. Then, as quickly as it came, the sound faded, leaving an eerie stillness in its wake. Jake's heart thundered in his chest. Was that just the beginning? Kyle said grimly. "Tonight will reveal everything. But we need to hurry. They'll be expecting us." With a quick nod, Jake took Melanie's hand, feeling her grip tighten. The thought of standing on the sidelines while a storm brewed terrified him, but stepping into this chaos offered no certainty of safety either. Together, they felt the weight of the unknown before them. What awaited them at the festival? Would they emerge as heroes or fall victim to the shadows closing in? As they raced towards the heart of the festival, hearts pounding and breath quickening, the air thick with unspoken fears, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that the truth they sought might cost them more than they were prepared to pay. As they sprinted through the festival grounds, the sounds of laughter and music blurred into a haunting backdrop. Jake could see the vibrant lights twinkling like stars caught in the trees, but instead of feeling warmth, he felt an odd chill creeping up his spine. It was as if the festive atmosphere had painted a cheerful face on a darker reality lurking just beneath the surface. "Stay close," Kyle warned, pulling them towards a side path away from the main throng. The eerie tension gripping him spurred Jake forward. He was acutely aware of the pulsing beat of his heart, echoing in his ears like a warning drum. "What are we looking for?" Melanie asked, her eyes darting nervously as the three moved deeper into the shadows. Kyle didn't answer immediately, his gaze scanning the crowd as if hoping to discern a friend from foe. There's an area behind the main stage, a clearing. That's where they perform the ritual, Kyle finally said. We need to be careful. The group gathers there before the main event starts. Is it really safe to confront them? Jake couldn't help but ask, his voice barely above a whisper. The idea of confronting something unknown, something dangerous, made his stomach turn. Kyle shot him a determined look. We don't have a choice, Jake. If we don't act now, they could unleash something we won't be able to stop. Despite the biting chill in the air, a fire ignited within Jake, a flicker of courage fueled by the thought of protecting what he loved. The lives they had built in this town, the friends they cherished, all of it hung in the balance. Yet, doubt lingered, could he truly be brave enough to face whatever awaited them? As they neared the clearing, dimly lit by lanterns swinging lazily in the breeze, a mix of anticipation and dread swirled within him. All those colorful lights began to shift shapes in his mind, transforming from festive cheer to something sinister and foreboding. Look! Melanie pointed ahead, her voice half a gasp. In the center of the clearing stood a small group, cloaked figures murmuring amongst themselves, their voices barely audible over the distant sounds of celebration. The shadows danced around them, long and menacing like fingers reaching for their prey. They look organized, Jake murmured, his instinct to run battling against their desperate need to uncover the truth. It's worse than I thought, Kyle muttered, almost to himself. He took a step forward, but Jake grabbed his arm. Wait. We can't rush in. We need a plan. At that moment, the ground trembled beneath them again, more forcefully than before. Jake stumbled, and for a moment, he felt like the earth was reacting to the energy being summoned around the group. It sent a tremor of fear through him, and he saw Melanie's eyes go wide with realization. Tonight is not just a festival. It's a gathering for something much darker, she said, her voice trembling. Jake's mind raced. He took a breath, steeling himself. Then we have to expose them. We can let the others know, start a distraction if we need to, he said, voice steadying. Kyle nodded, determination etched on his face. Let us move, but stay low. We need evidence. They crept closer, hearts pounding as they ducked behind trees and tents, gathering the courage to face the reality of their choice. The closer they got, the more they could feel the energy pulsing in the air, thick and charged, drawing them in like moths to a flame. As the words of the cloaked figures grew louder, Jake realized they were chanting in unison, a rhythmic, haunting sound that sent a shiver down his spine. He exchanged anxious glances with Melanie and Kyle. What are they calling? Jake whispered, but before anyone could answer, a flare of light shot into the sky. It exploded above them in a shimmer of dark brilliance, illuminating everything for a split second, revealing faces filled with fervor and belief. What have we stumbled into? Melanie said, eyes wide with fear. The forces at play felt ancient and inevitable. Suddenly, a voice rang out from the crowd, powerful and deep. Join us, and harness the power of the night. A chill cascaded down Jake's spine. They were in deeper than he realized, and the impending storm felt closer than ever. What if joining wasn't just an invitation? What if it was a trap? As the ground shuddered once again, Jake could only think of one thing: how would they get out now? The night stretched ahead, filled with uncertainty, but with their lives and town at stake, there was no turning back. What would they find in the heart of the darkness? The air was thick with anticipation, and Jake could feel it weighing down on him. The bright flare above faded, leaving behind only shadows and whispers. Each chant from the cloaked figures seemed to resonate through the air, vibrating deep within him. Panic fought against his resolve, coursing through his veins faster than his own heartbeat. Melanie's voice was barely a whisper now, taut with fear. She was clutching his arm, her fingers digging in like she was holding on for dear life. We can't go back now, he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. We need to find out what they're doing. Kyle motioned for them to follow after one of the figures, who began to drift toward the edge of the clearing. They exchanged glances and then moved stealthily, hearts pounding in sync with the thumping drums from afar. Each step felt heavier than the last, each murmur from the cloaked figures curling around them like smoke. As they neared the edge of the gathering, the words of the ritual became clearer. "O spirits of the night, grant us the strength to rise." The rhythmic chant seemed to pulse, a living thing that beckoned Jake deeper into its fold. "Do you hear that?" Kyle whispered, his eyes wide. "Yeah," Jake replied, his throat feeling dry. "They're asking for something, but what could they be asking from the spirits?" He glanced at Melanie, trying to gauge her fear, but found only determination mirrored in her eyes. She reached for Jake's hand and squeezed tightly. Their fingers intertwined, a small gesture that steeled him in the face of uncertainty. They slipped behind a towering stack of crates, barely breathing as they stole glances at the gathering. Flames flickered from a small fire pit, casting eerie shadows against the figures now revealed in the dancing light. The chant rose and fell like a heartbeat. Jake could feel it in his bones. Suddenly, one of the figures turned, and Jake froze. For one terrifying moment, he thought they had been spotted. But the figure merely lowered its hood, revealing a sallow face marked by deep-set eyes glowing with fervor. "Tonight is our night," the figure cried out. "With the blood of the unworthy, we will summon the Nightbringer." The blood froze in Jake's veins as the words sank in. Blood? The thought made him dizzy. What were they planning to do? He felt Melanie shiver beside him. She leaned closer, their foreheads almost touching. "We need to get out of here," she said, urgency woven through her whisper, but something drew him forward. A raw, bursting energy pulsed in him, as though he were being called to join. What if he could harness something powerful? A chance to protect those he loved? Jake's chest tightened at the thought. "Jake," she pleaded, sensing the conflict within him. "We can't just stand by. We have to do something." He nodded slowly, pulling away from her grip, needing to see more, understand more. Adrenaline surged as he stepped cautiously toward the clearing, drawn to the figure who had spoken. He felt Kyle and Melanie hesitate, held back by fear. "I have to know," Jake muttered, almost to himself. He edged closer, the crowd now filling with an intoxicating energy. The others began to stir, raising their arms, caught in a feverish chant of unity. He felt himself being pushed towards them, an invisible thread tugging at his very soul. Melanie's frantic whispers became distant. Everything faded except the wild energy surrounding him. "Join us!" The voice rang out once more. The crowd surged, and with it came a rush of palpable energy that sent Jake's heart racing. Jake took a deep breath as he stepped closer, the fear mingling with an almost euphoric sense of belonging. He was on the brink. Could he really join them? But the question loomed, if he did, what would be the cost? Jake swallowed hard, knowing he was teetering on the edge of a choice that could change everything, a choice with consequences far darker than he could comprehend. What lay ahead could either be salvation or his undoing. Just then, he caught a glimpse of something creeping from the shadows, eyes watching. Waiting. And in that instant, the reality of the gathering shifted, bringing forth a chilling thought. Who, or what, was truly in control here? Jake stood at the edge of the gathering, torn between his desire to protect his home and the seductive call of the ritual unfolding before him. The crowd swayed, their voices blending into a single powerful entity that echoed around him like thunder. "Jake!" Melanie's urgent whisper jolted him from his trance. Fear was etched across her face, and that familiar bond, the protective instinct, surged through him. He remembered everything they had fought for, the hope they had ignited within Oak Ridge. Could he truly sacrifice that for a moment of sway with shadowy figures? Suddenly, an explosion of light burst from the center, illuminating the figures with an unearthly glow. Someone had begun to fade into the flickering firelight, their features twisting into a mask of euphoria. They were losing themselves in the chant, engulfed by the energy that crackled through the air like electricity. "Step back," Kyle urged, glancing around frantically. Yet, as powerful as that energy was, Jake felt it call to the depths of his soul, igniting something buried within him, a longing to claim a piece of their history for himself, a chance to stand against the looming darkness. "Jake, please," Melanie said, desperation in her voice. "This isn't who we are." The tremor in her tone snapped him back. He locked eyes with her, and the flicker of their shared memories enveloped him. He recalled their laughter, their childhood. He remembered the late-night talks about dreams, their hopes for the future, the family that needed him now more than ever. With a deep breath, he mustered the strength within. "No. We want to join you," Jake shouted, breaking the reverberating hum that had entranced the crowd. The chanting halted abruptly, jerking everyone's attention toward him. The cloaked figures turned, their dark gazes boring into him like daggers. "No?" The lead figure scoffed, his voice dripping with contempt. "You think you can resist what's meant to be?" Melanie stepped forward, bolstered by Jake's defiance. "We stand together. As a community. We want to let you tear our town apart, not now." The friction in the air shifted. Uncertainty flickered across the gathering. Their chants had faltered, and Jake felt power swell inside him beyond his own fears. He turned to the townsfolk who were beginning to unravel from the crowd's hypnotic grip. He caught sight of familiar faces: Mrs. Thompson, kids from the neighborhood, even town council members, all watching with a mixture of fear and confusion. "We are Oak Ridge," Jake continued, his voice firm and rising like the warmth from the summer sun. "We champion hope over fear. Together, we stand united. We can save our town, not bring bloodshed." The figures hesitated, their confidence wavering as murmurs surged around them. "They're just words," one hissed. But even beneath this facade, Jake sensed the unraveling fear among them. They were not infallible. They were clinging to something that had lost its power in the light of unity. Taking a step forward, Jake extended his arms wide. "But our hearts carry more strength than any darkness can fathom. We choose love and family over hatred. We choose to build, not to destroy." With every word, he lifted the spirits of the townsfolk. They began to step forward, abandoning the paralysis fueled by fear. Faces lit up with newfound resolve, holding hands as they formed a bridge of humanity against the void. The cloaked figures shifted uncomfortably, their chants cracked and sputtered. The energy of the festival returned, pulsing through Oak Ridge, a vibrancy that shunned the dark. "You're nothing without your bloodshed." The lead figure screeched in anger, but Jake felt the tremor of their power fading, shattered by the very strength they had once underestimated. "We'll prove you wrong," Jake shouted back. "Join us, or step aside. We've fought too hard to let you destroy this town." With that, Jake turned, reaching for Melanie's hand, and pulling her close. Together, they led the charge into the crowd, hearts ignited in the shared spirit of determination. The people rallied behind, voices rising into a symphony of unity that washed away the remnants of despair. With every chant, every gesture of defiance, they matched the cloaked figure's energy with their own love, hope, and resilience intertwining like an unbreakable bond, an affirmation that fear would crumble against their newfound strength. The night throbbed with brightness as the shadows retreated, their whispers silenced before the roar of a community awakened in courage. Standing side by side with Melanie, Jake felt a radiant smile break across his face. At that moment, in the heart of their unity, he knew they had woven a new story into the fabric of Oak Ridge, a story that would echo through time. As the festival raged on, laughter mingled with the air, and the bonds they forged that night would illuminate their town for years to come. It wouldn't be easy, but together, they could overcome anything. The true battle had been won, united against the shadows that threatened them all. This is the moment when we need to show our support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let our voices be heard. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. Share your own journeys of overcoming. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformation. Show the world that true fans understand the importance of standing together. Don't wait not even one more second to share.